Welcome to the Applied Edge podcast. I'm Adi Ben-Ari, and this is the show where enterprise leaders talk candidly about technology decisions reshaping their industries, whether it's AI, blockchain, privacy, and what it actually takes to deploy them at scale.
There's not a single area of the bank that is not being touched by AI. You can buy a coconut on the beach and you will pay with your credit card because everything has been digitized. You need to jump on this boat because otherwise you're going to be left behind.
My guest today is Eduardo Alvarez, Partner of Strategy and Chief Data and AI Officer at Santander Brasil. Brazil has become one of the most digitally advanced banking markets in the world, and Santander has been in the middle of that transformation for over a decade. Eduardo sits at the intersection of strategy and AI inside one of the biggest players, which makes him exactly the right person to talk to about what enterprise AI actually looks like. Eduardo Alvarez, welcome to the Applied Blockchain podcast.
Thank you very much, Adi. A pleasure to be here with you.
Eduardo, please, for our listeners, explain a little bit about your role. My understanding is that you're Partner of Strategy and Chief Data and AI Officer at Santander in Brazil. Please explain to us a little bit about your background, what you do, and so on.
Correct. I lead the strategy and the data and artificial intelligence areas in Santander, Brazil. My background is I majored in finance, business administration, and also law. I did a double degree and then I started traveling for work, did consulting for almost 10 years, both in the IT and the strategy areas. Then I moved to Brazil and I started working for Santander. Then back to Spain. I've worked in 12 different countries. I've visited almost 60 and I lived in 6. I went back to Spain in 2014 to work for a large private equity fund with real estate assets. Then came back to Brazil in 2020 in the middle of the pandemics, and then worked for a health investment of another private equity fund. And finally went back to Santander. This is my second spell at Santander in September 22, initially as a head of strategy. And then I added different responsibilities. And the latest one since August last year is to lead the data and artificial intelligence transformation, which is how we're looking at this, like a complete transformation of how we do business and how we work in the bank. And obviously it's a societal change more than just looking at ourselves and thinking that the bank is going to change. It is pretty much everything is being touched by this.
Amazing. Eduardo, Brazil, as I've come to understand it, is one of the most advanced countries when it comes to digital banking and fintech. How do you explain this from your perspective? How do you look at this and how do you explain it?
Well, this was a big shock for me because I left Brazil in 2013. And when I left Brazil, one of the main conversation topics among bankers was how we're going to get everyone banked. We had an unbanked population, a pretty large informal economy, so it was tough to see how to get all that huge segment of the population within the financial services area. And when I came back in 2020, that wasn't a conversation topic anymore. Everyone...
There's a done deal.
Yes. The magic had to do with, I think, two main elements. One of those was the Brazilian Central Bank has been extremely active in terms of fomenting competition and adding technology to the daily activities of Brazilians. So there's two big elements here. First is Pix, is the P2P money transfer that was launched by the Brazilian Central Bank just 5 years ago. It seems like you wouldn't understand how Brazil is without Pix, but the fact is that it's only been here for 5 years. And it completely changed the way Brazilians use their money on a daily basis. There is just no cash anymore. Cash, again, was big in the country and ATMs were everywhere and you would pay plenty of things with cash. And now it's disappeared. You can buy a coconut on the beach and you will pay with your credit card or with a Pix because everything has been digitized.
And Pix is like, it works through a mobile app?
It works from the mobile app and you can pay anything. It's not only that you can do P2P transfers, which was the initial idea, but you can pay in the stores, you can pay on installments, on Pix installments. You can use it for any payment of any kind. Businesses use Pix to pay other businesses. Like it's replaced the traditional transfers, and it's by far the biggest adoption in terms of payment methods seen worldwide. In 1 year, everyone was using Pix. And because everyone was using Pix for their daily payments, this forced, in a good way, everyone to have an app of a bank because without the app, you could not pay. And now everyone has between 3 and 4 current accounts to work with different banks. There is over 1 billion accounts in Brazil, and there's 200 million people. So it's like 5 ahead. If you take the business accounts, it's between 3 and 4 active accounts per Brazilian. It's staggering.
Behind Pix, you have a bank account.
Yes, you need to have a bank account. And you have a key, which can be your ID, it can be your mobile phone, can be your email address. It's extremely flexible, and it's managed by the central bank, but developed with plenty of support from all the banks who were kindly invited by the central bank to join this Pix revolution. And functionalities haven't stopped yet. So in a few months, you will be able to use Pix almost like a credit card. Pix has been replacing cash to a much lesser level of impact. Debit cards have been also impacted, and now it's moving to other types of payments, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay, and presumably lending then plugged into
Yes.
that and so on, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You can do already payment in installments with Pix. It's catching any type of payment you can think of.
So this was a catalyst.
This was one of the catalysts, and the other was open finance. The open banking that the Brazilian Central Bank pushed is, I would say, the most transparent that I've seen. And you know that Santander is in plenty of countries, and I've seen different approaches to sharing your information with other banks so that they can give you better offers. But there's nothing that I've seen at the level of Brazil. I mean, you receive push messages saying that you're paying X with this bank, you could be paying 20% less if you come with us. Or you're getting this return on your investment with this product from your current bank, you could be getting 10% more if you came with us. So they have all the numbers of your credit or your investments. Once you consent to share your information, and the banks can make offers 100% tailored to what you're paying and what you would be paying. So it's extremely attractive. And those two things have increased competition and have digitalized the lives of Brazilians at a pace that I would not think it was possible.
Well, that's it's very interesting because we have, obviously we have open banking. We've had it in the UK for many years, but it's not really had a big impact. It's interesting to see how these things come together.
Yes.
Wow. And then AI. How do you look at this from your perspective?
What we've seen is this is not a technology only tool. If you think of it as an area that IT leads, you're only catching, I would say, 30% of what it implies. And I say this because you can think of use cases for pretty much every employee in the bank, because it implies a change in the way we work that would fall short if we just stick to technology. There's so many change management to do here, and so many cross projects that impact operations and front office. There's not a single area of the bank that is not being touched by AI. So what we did in Santander was split the AI area and the data area so that they report to the top management in the Santander Group and in each of the countries. We have become transformation agents. What we're doing now is training people, adding new tools, adding specific vertical tools that can help you in each of the areas, helping people to change the way they work. Because if you have been for 10, 15, 20 years working in a certain way, just getting to the office and say, okay, how is Claude, GPT, whatever LLM or whatever adaptation of the LLM that you have is going to help you to be more productive is not intuitive. This is not something that you do easily, like switching from one spreadsheet provider to another. This is not another tool provider that you already have. This is something new, and you need to integrate it to your day-to-day. That's why it's a huge change management program, and it has large use cases that can be identified top-down, but others that depend on every individual understanding how this works. It's not top-down that you're going to tell someone how your work is going to improve. You use this. Once they understand how it works, the ideas are endless. And that's where the most productive stuff shows up.
So first of all, you separated AI and strategy and data from IT itself, right? So you're running it as a separate unit, reporting to the top, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then how do you decide what to work on, and how do you drive that? Because you have to drive that change, I guess, with IT along the way and into different parts of the organization, right?
There were 4 or 5 areas that from the beginning we thought this needs special focus, and these are no-brainers. So for instance, making your operations automatic. Amazingly enough, in 2026 there's plenty of manual interventions in the back office of banks, and I'm pretty sure you're well aware of that. Just ideas so that you not only automatize those processes, but you rethink the processes from the scratch, because the tools that you have with AI allow you to do that. Not to just automatize the process, but to rethink the process and make it even more efficient. So we're reinventing our back office. That would be a good way, and it's not an exaggeration. We're reinventing our back office. That was one vertical that was very clear from the beginning. Another one was coding, and you're well aware of that. It's probably one of the toughest change management efforts, to talk to your developers and say, listen, you don't need to write every line of code anymore. One of the advantages that we have as a global group is that we have an investment fund, a venture capital fund called Moro Capital, and they have been very active investing in companies that looked really promising from the AI world, and they brought them to us so that we tested their services. And one of them is Cognition. They just got 1 billion finance on a 26 billion valuation. And they do that. They do code, vibe coding or zero coding tools that allow you to go a lot faster on whatever code that you're writing. And that's been, for us, a game changer, complete game changer. From February to now, we've gone from 5% users to 85% of coders using
And this is, Eduardo, this is for new systems, or this can also be, this is also used for updating existing systems?
New system, and we are automatizing the review of old systems that every year need updating. We haven't gone for the full let's rethink all our legacy systems yet, but the maintenance of those systems is today 10 times easier than it used to be. The building of new systems is in a completely different level. So coding was, and here you need incentives for them to test and to see how it works and to see. But once they get the hint to it, the main point is they understand that this is the future and that there's no way back to the old way of coding unless you want to do something very small, but not even that is worth it. So once you see that the rest of the market are using other tools or are trying to test that type of approach, and you see that it's working in your company, that makes the change a lot easier. Another vertical that we saw from the beginning was conversational for large services organizations with customer bases in the millions.
That's for customer support, right?
Yeah, it's all the customer support is really important, and to have something that understands the customer data and can process an answer fast and well structured makes a huge difference for us. So for each of those, we've been looking for partners who were using LLMs in a more vertical, specialized way, and we found those. And then we have individual productivity, which are the tools that we're giving to every single employee since 2-3 weeks ago. Everyone has the chat copilot working for them. And there's where we're seeing more change on the day-to-day activities of the people, because they now start the day taking a look at what their agents suggest they should be doing, or how they should prepare a meeting, or how they should develop a product. And that's something that's becoming engaging for a new way of working.
I was telling someone the other day that I think, obviously I use AI a lot, but it's still quite hard to quantify really what I'm doing, what I'm getting. But if you took it away from me now,
Yes.
Oh my God, I'd feel like I'll be going back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Yeah?
That to me is the best test. Okay, we're obviously trying to quantify and we work with the finance area to see how it was before and how it looks today. But the fact is that when I say, okay, we don't have it anymore, how do we go about solving this issue or how about changing this process? And yeah, everyone goes, okay, understood. Yes, we cannot live with this without this
Yeah.
now.
And Eduardo, how do you deal? I mean, I understand how someone like you in your position gets it, right? You're looking overall, you understand the technology, the impact, you have the high level view of the operations and so on, and the market. But you're dealing with a bank, you're dealing with a large organization, a conservative organization, a risk averse organization, right? As you say, a lot of people working in their processes, doing the same thing for a long time, and really risk is like one of the big considerations for them. How do you deal with the culture? How do you manifest this? How do you get people to actually change what they're doing on the ground?
The thing is, Adi, you're right in that risk is, and especially at Santander, I tend to believe that is something so important that we wouldn't be here if we hadn't taken care of that for over 100 years. But I guess that from the beginning, security and risk were a concern. So every provider we test, cyber and fraud and any potential gap in those areas, we really take a look at that really closely. I always say that my visit to the cyber department in the corporate centers is one of the most amazing things I've done in my life. It's just amazing how developed and how careful we are with anything that could arise from that. So every tool is triple tested. We make sure that nothing goes into production that has not been properly audited. And in some cases, it's making us slow down some decisions. And I think that's right, because this is not yet a well-structured market. The tools are not 100% what they would be in the future. I mean, this is not mature by any stretch of the imagination. In those situations, you need to be extra careful. And even if the transformation is clear and that we're in very competitive markets in which we need to be fast in adopting new technologies, etc., but risk is always an element of what we do, and it wouldn't be us if we weren't doing this.
Okay, but I'm interested also in like in the people, in the culture, right, of adopting it, because AI can instill fear in people. It can instill, people can, they don't know where to start with it. There's a lot of pressure to use it, but they don't really know what to do, and there's a lot of that. You talked about developers, for example. It's something that I've experienced in my team as well, right? That sometimes it was the non-technical people who've never coded, who take Claude code and suddenly produce amazing applications. And the coders are saying, hang on, you can't just do that. I want to make sure this is okay. And so being very careful about everything. So how do you deal with, especially in a large organization, the cultural, taking this on and getting people to actually use it in a positive way, embrace it?
The risk side is, even among developers, well covered, and we have red teams, etc. We have people trying to break those tools constantly, so they know that you can always find something that was not 100% as expected, and we have great test teams. But the adoption, we have a specific team to foster adoption, because we believe that this is not going to work if you just give this is like if you gave a youngster the keys to the car and just say, okay, drive. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Adoption is different for a developer, is different for a bank manager, is different for a guy in my strategy team. What they can do with it is different. So you need tailored training programs and tailored incentives, and of course, time to experiment the tools. To me, that's the most important thing. You need a few hours in the day in which your job is to test it, to play with it, to see how far it can go. and where it could make a mistake and where how you go about avoiding that mistake. And if you don't do that, then rejection is very easy because it's just I don't want to use this. I'm good at my job. No, I'm sorry. You were good at your job the way that job was 2 years ago. Your job is not that anymore. It doesn't work like that. It's tough to hear, but it's the way things are right now.
Yeah, it's an important thing. It's an important thing to communicate. It's really the world is changing, and you really want to give the people the tools and empower them to be part of that, really, and to help the organization kind of face into it.
Yeah, and if you don't, it's tough to see how that will move. And other companies, again, the competitive environment is really important here. Other companies will do it. Other developers will do it. Other strategy managers will do it. You need to jump on this boat because otherwise you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, it's interesting because maybe that competitive fintech and banking environment that you have in Brazil is also, it's created that competitive environment. And then in terms of AI, the same thing, right? You're going to have to be on it. And so there's almost a greater driver than there might be in other markets, right? Where the incumbents, competitors might be slower.
Yes, we have all types of competitors here in the banking sector. I don't think it's the same situation in other sectors, but here with the fintechs and the big techs and the tailors that have all the environment, including when you pay, and obviously the incumbent banks were really good to start with. I think the push towards technology and AI has been really, really strong.
Very good. And Eduardo, one of the hats you wear is strategy. Where are you seeing this going? Like, what's the direction of travel from your perspective?
I have a bias, which is the financial sector bias. And I think there is something that may happen in Brazil first and will happen in other countries later on, which is disintermediation is a huge risk for banks. And what I mean by this is that you will not need to use the bank's app, or you will not need to talk to a bank employee, or you will have your own financial services agent, which will take care of all your finances. The reason I say that in Brazil may happen before other countries is because with open finance, you could do that now, theoretically. You could have an agent that, with your consent, will access all your accounts and will tell you, this is the best credit card for you to use now because it gives you more mileage, blah, blah, blah. Or this is the best mortgage because I've already compared all the conditions and this is the best for your profile for what you need right now. Or this is your best investment today if you don't want to use the money in the next couple of years, blah, blah, blah. Out of all of your accounts, this is the best. This could be done now in Brazil. And it's starting timidly to get done bits by bits. First with the payments, and we'll see that progressing. And if you think in 10 years' time, that should be the way our financial lives should work. Strategically, for us, it makes sense to think, how do we get into that boat rather than look how the boat departs from the seashore.
Yeah, no, you want to be the infrastructure, right? You want to be part of that infrastructure.
You want to be there. The main thing here is to have a screen time with the client, because otherwise you're going to become a provider of balance, but not a company that's in touch with the clients. That's, to me, the biggest risk.
Okay, so it's the customer relationship at the end of the day. Okay, interesting. Eduardo, first of all, thank you very much for your time. It's been super interesting. I want to ask you, we met at an AI course, right, at the London School of Economics. That was obviously we had some amazing lecturers there, and that was a great source of understanding more about AI and organizations and thinking about things a bit differently. I want to ask you, do you have like any other sources of information, maybe books or people you've heard or something that you might recommend for other people who want to get into this more and learn more?
There's quite a few. I use X probably far more time than I should. I still write about football and speak about football on the BBC. So I started as a football writer or journalist, and then I started following a completely different breed of people. So I think that from the AI standpoint, the tutorials of Anthropic are fantastic. Following Karpathy always gives you a point that you probably hadn't considered yet, because his view is fantastic. There are some writers that are doing a pretty good job of translating what's happening into layman's words so that people understand. But I do believe that you need to devote some time to understand how it works, because then when you go from the guy that's simply putting the words into something that you understand to someone who's actually talking about the technology, and that's why Carpathy is a very high level. It's good to understand how they're going. That said, I don't want to be completely separated from the real economy, because this has to work on a market, on an environment. And that's why I keep reading things that happened in the past. For instance, the Sorkin's 1929. I'm finishing the book now. I'm enjoying it immensely. So I think you need a balance between what's going on in the tech and that could happen in the market, because both things are very important to be ready to for what's going on every day.
Learning from history a bit as well, and from the past, I guess. Okay,
Yes.
interesting. And you bring up the football. I mean, just in terms of timing, I watched the Japan-Brazil game yesterday. Oh my God.
I'm not sure you know, but the country stops 2 hours before the match. People can go home. And then they can only go back to work 2 hours after the match. So if the match is at night, nothing happens. But if the match is like yesterday, it was at 2 p.m., people leave at noon, and then they should go back to the office at 6, but it's too late. So basically,
so it's afternoon off.
Stops. There's no other subject in the journals. It's unbelievable. It's everything you heard
just the
applied by a few times more.
Just the AI agents keep going.
Yes. Productivity is still okay.
Wow, amazing. Eduardo, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for agreeing to join. Really appreciate your time. Let's stay in touch.
It was a huge pleasure, Adi. Thanks for inviting me, for having me here, and I really had a great time.
That was Eduardo Alvarez, Partner of Strategy and Chief Data and AI Officer at Santander in Brazil. If you enjoyed that conversation and you want to hear more from leaders like Eduardo who are shaping enterprise tech, AI and blockchain, subscribe wherever you listen to the show.